Every household in Norway is told, in writing, by its own government, to be able to survive 7 days alone. Not 3, 7. The list came in the mail. It is stuck to my refrigerator door with a magnet shaped like a lingonberry, and my neighbor Ingrid has the same one on hers. It is a plain thing. Government typeface, a few line drawings, no exclamation marks anywhere on it. It tells me how many gallons of water to keep and where. It tells me to own a battery radio. It tells me to have some cash in small bills because the card terminal at the shop is a computer and computers need electricity. There is no fear in the language of it. Nobody is warning me about collapse. Nobody is selling me a bucket of freeze-dried stew with a 30-year shelf life and a photograph of a mushroom cloud on the side. The document is closer in tone to a note from the dentist about flossing. And in my hall closet, on the shelf above the coats, is what the list asks for. 6 5-gallon jerry cans of tap water, a cardboard box of food that needs no cooking, a radio that runs on 4D batteries and has a hand crank on the side in case the batteries fail, a stack of tea lights, a box of wooden matches in a sealed jar, 2 rolls of small bills in an envelope, a first aid kit I check every January when I change the batteries in the smoke alarms. The whole shelf, replaced from scratch at today's prices, would run somewhere near $60 beyond what a person already has in the house. I have needed it 3 times in 11 years, twice for storms that took the lines down for a day and a half, and once for a water main that broke in the road and left the whole street dry for 2 days in the middle of a July heat wave. Each time it was an inconvenience instead of an emergency, and the difference between those 2 words is the entire subject of this episode. My father would have found the list amusing. He did not need a brochure to tell him to keep water and matches, because his generation had done a war and a blockade and did not require a reminder. What changed is that everything got so reliable that a man could grow up here without ever once seeing the tap run dry, and the state noticed and started sending out paper. The strange part is not that Norway does this. The strange part is how ordinary it is. A stranger in this country would never guess from any of our houses that we are all quietly ready for a week without help.
The list has an order to it, and the order is the useful part. Most people who start thinking about this begin with food, because food is what a person imagines running out of. Food is fourth. Water is first. The number here is 20 liters per person, which is a little over 5 gallons. That covers drinking, cooking, and the minimum hygiene for one person for 1 week. It is more than most people guess. The reason water sits at the top is that people misunderstand what a power failure is. A power failure is not a lighting problem. In a great many houses, the water arrives because a pump is running somewhere, either in your own well or at a municipal station up the road. Cut the electricity and the tap goes quiet. The toilet fills once and then stops, and the water heater holds whatever it holds and no more. A man can go 3 days without food and be uncomfortable. 3 days without water and he is in a hospital. Warmth is second, and in a cold climate, warmth is a survival question rather than a comfort question. The list is blunt about it. Wood, if you have a stove, and a heater intended for indoor use if you do not. What it means in practice is 1 room, not the house. You choose the smallest room with the fewest windows, you close the doors to the rest, and you heat and sleep in that 1 room with everyone in it, the way a family in this country would have done as a matter of course in 1890. Third is information, and this one surprises people. A battery radio sits high on the list because in a real disruption, the thing that turns an inconvenience into a panic is not the dark. It is not knowing. How long? How wide? Is anyone coming? Your phone will hold its charge for a day, and then the tower it talks to will run out of battery too, and the radio station with a diesel generator behind the building will still be broadcasting. Food is fourth, and it is the easy one. A week of food that does not need cooking or refrigeration is not a specialty purchase. Crackers, canned fish, beans, peanut butter, dried fruit, oatmeal, powdered milk, honey. Most kitchens are already 3 days into this without knowing it. Then the small things that everyone forgets until the moment they matter. Prescription medicine, because a pharmacy is also a computer. Cash, because the card reader is too. Matches, somewhere dry. A bucket and heavy bags, because if the water is off, the toilet is a decoration. Water, warmth, information, food, medicine, money. 6 words in that order, and you have the whole doctrine.
For years, the Norwegian recommendation was 3 days. In May of 2024, the Directorate for Civil Protection, which everyone here just calls DSB, raised it to 7. That is not a small administrative adjustment. It is a government telling 5.5 million people that the assumption they had been living under was wrong by more than double, and doing it in the same calm voice it uses to talk about bicycle helmets. The director at the time, Elisabeth Arsether, gave the reasons plainly to the press. A run of climate reports, a string of actual natural events, terror attacks, and a sharpened security situation in Europe. Her framing was not that catastrophe is coming, it was that attention had to increase along the whole chain, all the way down to the individual household. The logic underneath it is worth understanding, because it is the opposite of every survival pitch an American over 60 has ever had shouted at him from a television. It goes like this. In a genuine crisis, the municipality, the emergency services, and the volunteer organizations have to prioritize the people who cannot manage without help. There are elderly people alone, people on oxygen, people in hospitals, people cut off by flooding. If your household can handle itself for a week, you are not being heroic. You are getting out of the way so that the ambulance goes to the person who actually needs it. That is the entire emotional posture of this document, and it is why nobody here experiences the list as frightening. It is not framed as you against the world. It is framed as you doing your small part so that the system can reach the people in the worst trouble first. DSB also measures whether any of this works, which I find the most Norwegian detail of the whole business. They survey the population every year and ask whether people have followed the advice. The gap they find is one every American will recognize instantly. Around 8 in 10 say they intend to, and around 4 in 10 actually have. The government also runs a National Preparedness Week each autumn, when the advice goes out again through schools, municipalities, and the grocery chains. The supermarket by my house puts a printed shopping list next to the canned goods for that week. The list is on the wall of the pharmacy. Nobody makes a fuss about it and nobody hoards anything, because when it happens every year at the same time, it is a season rather than an alarm. And that is the thing I would most like an American to take from this. The difference between preparedness and paranoia is not the shelf. It is who tells you to build it, how often, and in what tone of voice. Now the specifics, because a principle you cannot buy at a hardware store is not much use to anybody. Water goes in rigid containers, not in the thin supermarket bottles. A 5 or 7 gallon jerry can with a screw cap and a spigot costs $15 to $25, stacks, and does not split when it gets knocked over. Fill it from your own tap. Municipal tap water stored cool and dark in a clean sealed container will hold a year without anything added to it. And if you write the date on masking tape and dump and refill it every New Year's Day, you never have to think about it again. 5 gallons a person. If you are 2 people in the house, that is 10 gallons, and that is 2 cans on the floor of a closet. Food that requires nothing. This is the test to apply to every item. Could I eat this in a cold, dark kitchen with no can opener that needs power and no way to heat anything? Canned fish, canned beans, crackers, peanut butter, nuts, dried fruit, oatmeal that will soften in cold water given time, honey, powdered milk, and a manual can opener hanging on a nail beside the box. A way to boil water, used outdoors only. A camp stove with 2 spare fuel canisters,
or a propane grill with a full tank. Boiling is what makes questionable water drinkable, and it is what turns a box of dry goods into a hot meal, which matters more to morale on day 3 than anyone expects. The radio, which should be the one purchase you do not economize on. $25 to $40 gets you a battery set with a hand crank and a phone charging port on the side. Test it once a year when you test the smoke alarms. Cash in small bills. $100 in 5s and 10s does you far more good than $100 in 20s when the shop is running on a cash box and a pencil. Warmth that does not depend on the house. Wool blankets, a sleeping bag, wool layers, hats. And light, which is a whole subject of its own and which I will not spend this episode on. The medicine cabinet, which is the part that separates people my age from people at 30. If you take something daily, a week's cushion is the difference between an inconvenience and a genuine medical event. Talk to your pharmacist about how to build that margin legally through refill timing, because the rules on early refills are real and they vary. And the habit that keeps the whole shelf from quietly rotting: write the expiry dates on a single sheet of paper and tape it inside the cupboard door. Eat from the shelf before things expire and replace what you ate. A preparedness shelf that gets used is a pantry. One that never gets touched is a box of garbage you paid for in advance.
Several things about this do not cross the ocean intact, and one of them could kill you, so I want to be careful here. The lethal one first. The Norwegian list assumes a wood stove in the house, and if you do not have one, the single most dangerous thing an unprepared household does in a cold power failure is bring outdoor heat indoors. A charcoal grill, a propane grill, a camp stove, a generator in an attached garage or on a covered porch. Carbon monoxide has no smell and no color. It makes you sleepy before it makes you sick, and people die of it in ordinary suburban houses after every major storm in the United States. Cook outdoors. Run a generator no closer than 20 feet from the house with the exhaust pointed away. And if you own a fuel-burning appliance of any kind, a battery carbon monoxide alarm is $10 to $25 and is not optional. The official American number is different from ours. The federal guidance in the United States has long been built around 3 days of supplies, with an encouragement to build toward 2 weeks where you can. And your own state and county emergency management offices publish their own lists that account for what actually happens where you live. Hurricanes, wildfire evacuation, ice storms, and heat are not the same problem, and they do not have the same list. Look up your county's version. It will be more relevant to you than mine. The Norwegian list also assumes a kind of house many Americans do not have. It assumes a cold garage or an unheated basement where water can be stored without freezing solid or cooking in the summer. In Phoenix in August, a jerry can in the garage is a different object than it is in Oslo. Store it inside, in a closet, out of the sun. There is a piece of the Norwegian arrangement that does not transfer at all, and it is the part underneath the paper. This works here because of a level of trust in the institution sending the letter, and because the municipality really does show up. The list is not a substitute for the state. DSB says so in its own text. The authorities carry the responsibility for preparedness, and the household is being asked to bridge the gap until help reaches it. If you read it as the government admitting it will not come for you, you have read a different document than the one on my refrigerator. And I will not tell you this saves you money, because it does not. It costs about $60 beyond an ordinary pantry, plus whatever the radio costs, and the return on it is a week you did not spend frightened. That is the whole return. I think it is worth it. But it is not an investment, and anyone who sells it to you as one is selling you something else. The last honest thing is about the tone in your own head. There is an industry in your country built on making people my age afraid. and it sells buckets and bunkers and monthly subscriptions. The Norwegian version has no villain in it, no hidden knowledge, and no deadline. If building this shelf makes you feel calmer, you have done it right. If it makes you want to build a bigger one, stop and go have coffee with somebody.
One afternoon. That is the whole project. Buy 2 5-gallon water containers, $15 to $25 each, and fill them from your kitchen tap. Write today's date on the side with a marker. Put them in the coolest interior closet you have. 5 gallons per person in the house is the target. And if you are 2 people, you are now finished with the single most important item on the list. Buy a battery radio with a hand crank, $25 to $40. Put a set of spare batteries in the bag it came in. Turn it on once and find the station in your area that carries emergency broadcasts, and write that frequency on a piece of tape stuck to the radio. Because in the dark on a bad night, you will not want to be hunting for it. Add 7 days of food that needs no cooking to your next grocery order and put it in one box on one shelf, not scattered through the pantry. Canned fish, beans, crackers, peanut butter, oatmeal, dried fruit, and a manual can opener taped to the side of the box, $30 to $50. Put $100 in 5s and 10s in an envelope somewhere you will remember. Buy a battery carbon monoxide alarm if you do not have one, $10 to $25, and put it in the hallway outside the bedrooms. This is the item on this entire list most likely to actually save a life in your house, and it is the cheapest thing on it. Call your pharmacist this week and ask, plainly, how to get a week ahead on your prescriptions, and stay there. Most people have never asked and are surprised by the answer. Then tape 1 sheet of paper inside the cupboard door with the expiry dates on it and the date you filled the water, and put a note in next January to check the whole shelf on the same day you change the smoke alarm batteries. 1 day a year, forever. And look up your own county emergency management office online and read their page. 10 minutes. They know what is likely to happen where you live, and I do not. The storm that took our lines down in February came in the evening. Ingrid came across the road with a thermos because her stove is electric and mine is not. And we sat at my kitchen table with the radio going low and the tea lights burning and talked for 4 hours about nothing at all. Somewhere out in the dark, a crew was working on a pole in the sleet, and we were not part of their problem. That is what the shelf in the hall closet is for. Not to survive anything. To be able to sit still while it passes.